this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. We are going to go back to our roots today. So when I first started this podcast, I had this vision of not only interviews with other people that were successful in business or helping people to be successful in business, but I also wanted to incorporate Ask the Expert segments and consulting calls because that's a big part of my professional life right now. Helping those at various stages in business to be successful and maintain their values. So this is going to be more of a consulting segment today, but it's also an opportunity to spotlight someone who I have been very impressed with. So our guest today is somebody that I connected with through a Facebook group, and we started working together for business consulting, and we are in the throes of that process. And so I've had the opportunity to learn a lot about his successful, established solo practice, his reasons for wanting to expand, all of the preparation to get ready for this venture. And then we were able to weave the Enneagram into our process where we were realizing that there were these blocks that were preventing him from taking that leap to actually bring someone on to his team and realize that the Enneagram could be helpful in understanding that. So I'm excited for you all to get to know him through our talk today. Jose Diaz, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julia. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to have gotten to know you and work with you through this process. And I am confident that you have created something that is not only somewhere that would be desirable for a clinician to work, but also getting a sense of how you work in terms of counseling and providing therapy. So, all right. So give everybody some background. Tell us about your journey to starting your practice, and then what led you to a point where you were starting to consider expansion.
Yeah, so I'm a licensed professional counselor, originally from Miami, Florida. So I finished my master's at Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and then about 6 years ago, my family and we moved to Northern Virginia, which that's where I'm based at, and I've had the privilege to, over the past few years, slowly transition from, the usual full-time approach that a lot of us kind of take initially to independent practice, solo practice. It's something that's been on my mind for many, many years. And just fortunately took the leap, and things have been moving well. And overall, the goal has been to add additional therapists, additional services, and eventually get to also adding a medication management provider to the practice. It's been somewhat of a challenge, in some areas. In other areas, it hasn't. But we are kind of a one-man show here, doing everything, as best as I can. But clients are definitely satisfied. Everyone's happy. I get to making sure that their needs are met.
Mm-hmm.
And just overall kind of focusing on things related to, trauma, depression, anxiety. Also give attention to men's issues. Also an ally of the LGBTQ, community. That's been also integral. I appreciate them, and also kind of teaching me,
Mm-hmm.
more about the community along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a very interesting ride, and so I kind of got to the point where I needed a bit more formal direction, because I can tend to be in many places at once in my mind. And so I was asking, or not to maybe asking, I think I found some suggestions on Facebook, a group, and Julia, yeah, you came up, and I had the privilege to have a call with you, and I guess the rest is history.
So we are in the throes of this
Yeah,
process right now.
yeah,
So there is no question that you have created something really incredible. And so what are the parts of private practice that you have found have come easy to you before we talk about maybe some of the more challenging
yeah.
aspects with this expansion on the horizon?
Yeah. So I would say the easy things are like establishing the business, like the whole LLC. So mine's a PLLC. Um, Doing all that administrative stuff, choosing which EHR to kind of use, getting familiar with that, which is simple practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say partnering with uh, not necessarily insurance companies, but under the umbrella of some platforms, like Headway and Grow, to help with the referral, a type of aspect of the practice. Um, and obviously like the tech, part of it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, all that's been relatively useful. I've used templates, document templates from the past of other places that I worked at as a reference to create my own template, just to kind of make sure I was, hitting all the necessary points, not only that are necessary for clients, have a good understanding of them initially, but to also kind of meet, insurance criteria. Um, uh, Being available to clients, prospective clients through like communication, phone calls, just that reciprocity. Um, I would say that that's probably the easy part,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, the challenge, which like I've mentioned with you, isn't so much of a challenge, because I've been privy to these experiences, but it's in the onboarding, like when am I ready to hire a therapist? How do I go about doing that? Like maybe overthinking about like the interview questions, the whole interview process,
Mm.
um, and then worries related to like a steady stream of referrals, uh, the things related to that. So that that's on the more challenging side. Um, but I'm pretty much done with all my opinion. This is all the easy stuff, and this is where you're definitely much more useful.
So I appreciate you walking through that. I can see how that would be really helpful for someone in a similar situation that maybe their solo practice is established, they're considering expanding, and you're speaking to a lot of us out there where the pieces that may become easy for some of us, I mean, the therapy, honestly, the relationships with people, making connections and building those partnerships. And then for you, it seems like the tech piece and, you had some resources for templates and doing some of those, like selecting a business entity and whatnot. Those were kind of boxes to check and you were able to move through those pretty quickly. So it sounds like the biggest challenge, and I hear this a lot, is that final kind of ripping the band-aid off. So you've created something, you're proud of it, you have a reputation, and you're doing the work. And then that idea of, yes, bringing somebody on to help because we can only serve so many people and to build a team and to increase impact is a no-brainer. But are they going to be the right fit? How do you
Yeah,
find them? How do you ensure that it's going to be successful? Having that responsibility to fill their caseload, like you mentioned, do I have enough referrals? Having that responsibility as an employer to pay them. And if you offer any type of benefits, this is their livelihood. So I think some of that can get in the way for some of us. And so the Enneagram came into play for us. My understanding of this was we were emailing back and forth in between some of our meetings, and you had done so much of the foundational work, and then you would make sure that everything was scalable, and then you had done a lot in terms of referrals, and you had a pretty steady flow. And then we had focused on the hiring piece, and we had talked about what those steps would look like, and I offer a lot of templates and forms and what that process would look like. And then I found that some time had gone by and you were still having some reservations about actually bringing someone on. Am I really ready? And so I thought the Enneagram would be extremely helpful to maybe shed some light on what is this fear that is coming into play here potentially? And so you graciously took a test and came back to me that you were an Enneagram 6. So for those of you out there that are familiar with the Enneagram, this is not going to surprise you. For those of you that aren't, so this is the loyalist. So these tend to be people who are wonderful in terms of coming up with a contingency plan, planning for the worst case scenario. They've always got a plan B. And so for them, they want security, they want support, they want to make sure that they have the right guidance. And so that makes a lot of sense why we ended up working together. But then sometimes they can question themselves in these moments and allow some of these thoughts and concerns to override maybe that readiness on a logical level. So tell me about what that was like for you to take that test and have that discovery and then read about a 6.
Yeah. I had the name was familiar. The Enneagram name was familiar, but I had never taken the test until you brought it up. And the interpretation of it was, I would say, it was impactful. And if I'm being honest, it bothered me. For
Same.
Yeah. It bothered me for a while. It bothered me for a while because I mean it's accurate. But like you had mentioned earlier, it was helpful to have a name to the experience.
Yeah.
And so after I got over it, I worked on being more intentional and reducing those worries and those fears, and reminding myself that there's options and how to move forward, and that there's resources, like yourself and many other people that I don't have to do it all on my own, and I don't have to think that I should know everything or have to know the right way, the proper way. And so that was relieving, and that opened a bit of a door to be more productive, to progress and get a little bit closer to hiring someone, right? Because sometimes I was even thinking, too big maybe, where I was worried about bringing somebody full time, not having enough, referrals for them that work for them. And then I was, like you had mentioned before, I remind myself, it doesn't have to be full time. We can start part time, right?
Right.
And so that makes it much more attainable. That makes it realistic, manageable, for me. And so, reducing the worries, reducing the fears, but I would say maybe augmenting myself, reminding myself that, hey, I've been on the opposite side, and so I have the perspective of what this is like and how it kind of goes.
Yeah.
And so I may not know exactly what I'm doing, but I have an experience that I can pull from.
Right.
And so yeah, that was very, very useful.
So the first thing that sticks out to me that I have to mention is you handle this in such a healthy way. So you get the information, and for most of us, so today I actually provided an Enneagram training to a group practice. And so the group practice owner had asked me to come in, and this is one of my favorite things to do because you've got this group of people that work closely together and they have some understanding of one another in a clinical sense, but maybe not so much on a personal level and how some of their personality can impact their work. So everybody takes the test and we share what our numbers are. And then we go through all the 9 types and we talk about triads. And then we focus on how can we incorporate this with clients and use this among the team to really be more collaborative and supportive to one another. And so it can feel really raw. And I always offer this disclaimer in the beginning that we never want to use this information we always want to use it for good, right? It's never with the intention to hurt anybody. And so not every facet of a type is going to resonate. And so it really comes down to where we are on our journey in terms of how healthy are we or how overloaded are we, right? And then I think the key is really awareness and deepening our understanding, giving ourselves and other people grace and learning to work with it. And we all have choices, like you said. We all have options. We're not stuck in a box. We have the ability to get out of it. So I love that it took some time. It hit you. But then the gears started turning and you were thinking, okay, how can I use this information to help my process? And you've always stayed really true to your mission. So none of this fear, let's call it, has derailed you. You've always stayed focused on where you want to be. It's more, how do I just eliminate these like roadblocks that are in the way and keep on going forward? So give everybody a snapshot of where you are right now in terms of readiness to hire someone. So one of the big pieces was you had talked about being able to fill their schedule, and your mind immediately went to hire somebody full time. And then it was much less pressure to think, well, I could always onboard somebody part time. And then we gradually build when they're ready and when we have enough referrals. So that was helpful. What else can you share about where you are right now in the process?
Yeah, yeah. But so I've come I've established another profile on the simple practice. I use this boost to communicate. So I've established another role there. Also, I've written out the some of like the onboarding outlines, to approach with a new hire.
Mm-hmm.
I've been keeping track, like you had recommended, keeping track of the referrals, coming in,
Yeah.
the and their sources, just to kind of see how many are uh, transitioning from a perspective to active. Templates have always been ready to go. I through Headway I already have the group practice
Great.
without designation, right? So it's just a matter of finding an appropriate hire, and we can start to get them, or I can start to get them. Uh,
So you haven't posted the position yet.
no,
Is
no,
that
no,
correct?
no,
Okay.
no. I haven't
All right.
posted it, but through Headway, I can help them get credentialed, for insurance coverage. Um, the posting piece, I've decided on giving myself a date to post it. Which I think is tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow.
What
Uh,
timing?
yeah, yeah. We got to get this done and over with, right? We got to move on.
Yeah.
And so
You're
yeah, so
ready.
tomorrow.
So if this is reassuring for you, there is no question in my mind that you are ready for this step. I think the key was really convincing you and you convincing yourself that you were there. So one of the pieces that I think is such a great example of how the Enneagram could be helpful, right? So when I work with someone as a business consultant, it's usually a limited time. I'm fortunate enough where we connect and we build a relationship where I'm not going anywhere. So I love updates. I love when people follow up and check in, and we can't prepare for everything. So especially when we have a team and we're dealing with human beings, things are going to come up, and it is so invaluable to have somebody that's there at the ready to support or to provide guidance. But during that time we're working together, these are people that I don't know. And so it is such an expedited way to get to know them. And so when I was seeing that this barrier was coming up for you and figured out that you were a 6, it became so clear to me that you really deserved acknowledgement for the fact that you started your practice in the first place. So Enneagram 6s can tend to stay sometimes in jobs where they're not fully happy because they are so loyal and because they're getting maybe some of that support or they have some of these pieces taken care of for them. So for you to have taken that leap and started your practice and been as successful as you were, that was so worthy of acknowledgement. And so we had talked about having a visual reminder for you that you can do hard things and that you already have and you were successful at it to reinforce, keep continuing to put one foot in front of the other. And so we had talked about getting your degree framed and having that on the wall and having that be a reminder. So that's just an example of how I wouldn't have necessarily been able to suggest something like that if we hadn't discovered the Enneagram number and I hadn't kind of put these pieces in place. And so it seemed like that was a positive for you of, I really did. And so I'm going to keep moving and I'm going to do this. And just that reinforcement.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
So,
agree. And to the idea of the degree, I had never put it up. It was still in the envelope that it arrived at my home, and I just didn't think it was anything hard, for me. I mean, how many
yeah.
people have degrees out there, right? And so that's how I was just looking at it. It's just one more thing I
Yeah.
had to do, right? You know, I don't know. It's just a stray shot,
Yeah.
but no, with your help, your suggestion, I decided to get the frame, and I
Yeah.
have it now in front of me up
I
there.
love it. It's a good
And
visual
yeah,
representation of a major milestone.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I love that you set a date for yourself. So tomorrow's the big day. You're going to post the position. So what are some things that are on your mind that would be helpful to maybe talk through our conversation that might be helpful for someone else listening? So one thing I'm thinking about is, when do you know you're ready to expand? So I'll just share some of the things we talked about early on.
Mhm.
The key thing is, do you have enough referrals to fill another person's caseload? And if you don't, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't hire. It just means that you have a little bit more work to do to spread the word, build those connections, form those partnerships, and have at least a steady stream so that you can achieve whatever your goal is. If you want somebody full-time or part-time, or you have an idea how big you want to grow, that's a big one. You want to have all your systems scalable, right? So you want to make sure that it's easy to add somebody to your electronic health record and provide them with a phone number and an email account. Make sure everything's HIPAA compliant. You got to have your paperwork in order. So all of those pieces. What else would you say was really helpful for you to logically confirm that you were ready for this next step?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely like keeping track of the referrals, um, uh, just kind of pretty much seeing how everything is in place. That I really don't need anything else. You know, the only thing I need to do is just do right,
Yeah.
just do different, right, and let myself step into it, and I can control the pace of that process. You know,
Yes.
I can filter, you know, who I meet with or when I meet with them. You know, who I choose to onboard. You know, when I onboard them, like, you know, and so it's I have there's comfort in knowing or choosing my pace. You know,
Definitely.
and yeah, and if things come up, it's nothing that I haven't experienced, whether directly or indirectly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't have to know it. I don't have to figure it all out. You know,
Yeah.
there's other researchers out there, and one of those is my website, because I was like, oh, I got to build the website, you know, but I have no idea how to build the website. But let me just like write the content for it, you know. So I wrote a bunch of stuff. I had different pages, and I was like, but this looks like crap, right? I need to look for someone that's really creative and can almost like capture the idea that I'm going for.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, I found someone also on a Facebook group. And I mean, her name's Amanda Jeffers, and awesome, super awesome to talk with. Very, very pleasant, very engaging, authentic, and it looks awesome. And another thing I've been doing that reminds me, that helps me remember that I'm ready, is I also had written many blogs, you know, some time ago, and so I've been uploading those blogs to the site. And now what I started doing is starting to upload it to like social media. So I think it was yesterday I did one on Facebook. I think it was yesterday, and then the day before I did one on LinkedIn. So the idea is to kind of keep that pace to, you know, add more exposure. You know, help drive attention, which
Mm-hmm.
kind of plays into the whole like confidence, security, you know, that type of piece.
Yeah.
But the answer really is just seeing how that everything's in place. I really
Yes.
don't need anything else.
Totally. So I love that you kind of have your mental checklist of all the things
Yeah.
that you have taken care of that are within your control, and then reassuring yourself that when the unexpected comes up, which it will, right? It's inevitable in life. It's inevitable, especially in business. And then you add in that you're going to be working with other human beings and we're unpredictable, that you are affirming your own capability to navigate those challenges. And I actually think you as a six are probably better at navigating some of those than the average person. So me being a one, and I have a six on my leadership team, she is one of the best people to have as my right hand, because when we have a situation, she's already thought through so many of the scenarios that I might not have thought of yet, or that I could potentially overlook. And so she's great at reminding me of, but what about this? And did you consider this? And so we balance each other out really well. So I think in terms of dealing with the unexpected, you're more prepared than the average person. But I also want to normalize this experience of when you hire, there will always be this unknown, right? And so all you can really do is your website and your web presence and, you know, your logo and what you stand for, right? You've got that, you're clear. You've got a reputation, you've built relationships, and you've done great work with people. You've got that. And then you've got everything in place for them to be successful. And so I love what you said about you have choices, but you can also go at your own pace. So even the hiring process, if they're the right person, then you spacing that out and maybe having multiple checkpoints and really taking the time to onboard them successfully, you're going to learn so much about the person. And if that doesn't work for them, then maybe they're not the right fit. And you always have the ability to address issues if they come up, hopefully earlier rather than later. And nobody has to stay employed for you. They can make the decision to move on. You can make the decision that they need to move on. Or if they're coachable, you can work with them through some of these challenges. And we have those skills as therapists. And I think we have a leg up and an advantage because we're so relational. We're good communicators. We're empathetic. We're compassionate by nature. We have to be more worried about potentially over accommodating than the alternative, right? Like putting other people before ourselves as a business owner. But you've already had some experience with that in your own practice. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, yeah, we have all the skills needed. We've learned it along the way. It's just the overthinking piece, the trying to get it, make sure that you get it right, because it's a lot of a person's individual past, kind of plays into it, so it's
Mm-hmm.
wanting to make sure that things work out well, not only for myself, because this really isn't for me, it's for my families.
Yeah.
And so that augments the desire, but also the pressure,
Yes.
but I know it's definitely with good intentions. I'm ready, and there's support. Wherever if needed. I will say that I don't want to over rely on it, and I want to check myself. That's
Mm-hmm.
why sometimes when I want to like send you an email, I'm like, let me figure this out on my own. I should probably answer this myself rather than send her this stupid email.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you wouldn't care, but it's like I don't want to,
Mm.
lean on the crutch too much. It's okay that it's there, and that's why it's there. But I don't have to use it all the
Yeah.
time. I don't want to
Well,
use it all
it's increasing your own self-reliance,
the
right?
time.
And one thing that I can share about the Enneagram that's so invaluable. So with you being a 6, you're in the head triad, right? So me being a 1, I'm in the gut triad. So I'm more inclined to take action and maybe not spend too much time with the
Yeah,
feelings or the thinking. And then there's the feeling and emotional triad. So for you as a 6, what is so helpful for you is if you've done enough,
yeah, yeah,
take imperfect
yeah,
action. And that's
yeah,
exactly what you're doing. So you're challenging yourself to keep moving, even if you don't know that you're going to have a soft place to land. And I think reassuring yourself that your private practice has been so successful. And because we've worked together, we've talked a little bit about the math and compensation
yeah,
and what all of that will look like. You're not going to lose money. So as long as you continue to see your caseload, you're generating your income, and then you're only going to decrease that if it makes sense for you, if it makes sense financially, and if things are going well with your person. And then I'm sure that you're somebody who's probably really conscientious about putting money aside, having an emergency fund, having something
yeah,
in savings. So I think the point you mentioned is so significant, where this isn't just about you, this is also about family and providing for them and legacy. And so, those pieces can come into play. But I think when you think so much about that, you're not somebody that has to worry. You're willing to put in the time and effort you need to be successful. You're not afraid of hard work. And I
yeah,
think the key is really, if somebody's working, great. But if they're not, then it's okay to move on and
yeah,
trusting that you are going to find the right person. So I think the key is
yeah.
imperfect action, and it sounds like you're very close.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. It's just the usual overthinking that people deal with, or that our own clients come to us for help, which
Yeah.
is always incredible. How impressive we can be in that work with others. But sometimes with ourselves, right?
Right? We got to take
It's
our own
definitely
advice.
a bit tougher. Yeah, yeah,
It is,
yeah.
absolutely. So, any final thoughts that you have about this next step for you? So, going into tomorrow and posting this position, which I think is so important, you gave yourself a timeline, you are holding yourself to that. And I'm really excited to see how this goes for you. But any final thoughts as you are kind of the day before you're taking the leap?
Yeah. I was trying to find earlier your last email with there's some like, other templates. Just trying to. probably again get ahead of things. It's like what are the interview questions? But it's like I don't need the interview questions. I know what the questions are.
Yeah.
I have an idea of what I would want them to do also. Because I definitely don't want to go by just responses. Like I want to test your skill a bit, and I also want to know what your responses are to see if we don't have to think alike, but close enough, in how
Yeah.
we conceptualize things. So have that approach.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe well, have yeah, the posting is already done. Maybe at some point later go over the agreement, like the
Mm-hmm.
therapist agreement, just to make sure it looks good or yeah, and I guess most aspects. Um, then no, really just that. I've been setting aside more administrative time, like you had suggested.
Good.
Uh, so that's definitely been working out.
Good.
Yeah, yeah,
So, some thoughts I have for you as you're going into this next phase would be thinking about how you had said that you are giving yourself permission to kind of space it out, but there's also
yeah,
some things that are going to space it out naturally, right? You don't know how much interest there's going to be. And then you are the one who determines when that interview is. And then from there, the follow up. And then from there, in terms of what you can request from them. So I find in the interview, what is more helpful than anything is how do I feel when I'm in the presence of this person? If I were on the couch in a therapy session with them, or if I was on the other end of the camera, how do they make me feel? Do I have that confidence that this is somebody who could be the one to help me achieve a higher level of functioning in my own life? Then from there, I love what you were saying about more of those experiential questions. So, yes, of course, we want the basics. What is their experience like? And what are they looking for? And what led them to choose you and come on this interview? But then beyond that, it's really how do they handle crises? And how do they get all of their documentation done? And how do they respond to feedback? And, are they lifelong learners? And what are their future career goals? So, you will find that when you're in that situation, you have the preparation and the guide. I think you're going to also be developing your own rhythm and what feels right to you. And then from there, you're going to be checking references. So that's another step in the process. Then there's whether or not they're going to accept your offer. So you sometimes go back and forth and do some negotiation. And then if you decide you want to onboard them, there's even still a period, even though with something like Headway, that's a little shorter, but there's going to be a credentialing process. And then, so all of that still gives you more time to spread the word that you're hiring, to get those referrals, to build that waiting list, to fill that schedule. So just an example of how there's so many different points in the process and just more confirmation that
yeah,
you are ready for this, you can space it out, and we still don't really know how all of that's going to
yeah,
look. So just
yeah,
reiterating that you've got the pieces that are within your control
yeah,
under control.
yeah, and that's very accurate because like even in the therapy process, right? When we talk with clients, we never know what to expect that day, that hour, and funny enough, that's I use that to help others kind of like introduce this more flexible, fluid thinking, so we move away from like rigidity. I never know what to expect, but I believe and know that I can
Mm-hmm.
manage what comes my way. So it's the same idea. Obviously, I just need to apply it in this context and to myself, right? Uh,
Absolutely. Yes.
and go from there.
So I am thrilled for you. I can't wait to hear how it goes. I'm looking forward to our continued work together. So share with everyone the name of your counseling practice, where they can find you to learn more if they have any
Yeah,
interest in working for you, working with you.
yeah. So the name of the practice is Revive and Thrive Counseling. Based in Northern Virginia, but I'm also licensed in DC, New Jersey, and Florida. You can feel free to contact us at 703-829-6554. The website is revivethrivecounseling.com. And if you'd also like to email me, it's info@revivethrivecounseling.com.
Love it. I will include all that in the show notes to make it easy for people. Thank you so much for entrusting me to help. for being willing to come on the show and share your experience, for being open to learning more about yourself through the Enneagram and through this process. And I couldn't be more excited for this next leg of your journey. So best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.